The rain poured heavily, washing away the last of Adeola's tears as she stood alone on the village road. Her feet ached from walking, her heart pounded in her chest. The house she once called home was now far behind her. But there was no going back. They had locked the door. They had pushed her out. Adeola was abandoned. Earlier that morning, everything seemed normal. Adeola, a 16-year-old girl with wide, curious eyes, woke up to the sound of her stepmother yelling as usual. Ever since her father remarried after her mother passed, Adeola's life had changed. Her stepmother, Adebizi, made sure Adeola felt like she didn't belong. But she never expected to be thrown out. Adeola, come here now. Adebizi's voice rang out, sharp as a blade. Adeola rushed to her, fearing what could come next. Yes, ma. Adeola stood in front of her stepmother, hands trembling. Adebizi's eyes narrowed as she glanced at the small loaf of bread Adeola had saved from last night's dinner. You dare steal food from this house? Adebizi's voice was low but filled with anger. You lazy, useless girl. This house is not for thieves. Adeola was stunned. I didn't steal it. I just... Silence. Adebizi's hand struck Adeola across the face before she could finish her sentence. Adeola staggered, holding her cheek, her eyes wide with disbelief. You are not welcome here anymore, Adebizi hissed. Pack your things and leave. Today. But where will I go? Adeola's voice cracked as fear gripped her. I don't care. Go to the street, go to the forest, go wherever. Just go. Adebizi stormed off, leaving Adeola standing in shock. And now, here she was, standing in the rain, clutching the small bundle of clothes she managed to pack. The village seemed quiet, but her thoughts were loud. She had nowhere to go. Her father wasn't home, he was always away on long trips. No one would stand up for her, not in this village where Adebizi had made everyone believe Adeola was a problem. As she walked through the muddy paths, Adeola remembered the stories her mother used to tell her. Stories of strong girls who overcame hard times, who faced monsters, then came out stronger. But this wasn't a story. This was her life. And it felt like a nightmare. Suddenly, Adeola heard a voice. Adeola. Is that you? She looked up and saw Adewale, an old friend from school. He was carrying firewood on his head, his clothes soaked from the rain. Adewale. Adeola gasped. She hadn't spoken to him in months. After her stepmother came into her life, she was forced to quit school. But seeing him now brought a flicker of hope. What are you doing out here in this weather? Adewale asked, concern in his voice. I've been sent away, Adeola admitted, her voice shaking. Adewale frowned, stepping closer. Sent away? But why? Where are you going? I don't know, Adeola said, her eyes filling with tears again. My stepmother, she hates me. She kicked me out. For a moment, Adewale stood silently, thinking. Then, he set down the firewood and pulled Adeola under a tree for some shelter. You can't stay here in the rain like this, Adewale said firmly. You need to come to my house. Adeola shook her head. No, your family will ask questions. And what if they don't want me there? I can't risk being rejected again. Adewale looked her in the eye. You're not going to be rejected. My mother is not like your stepmother. She'll understand. The two of them walked quietly to Adewale's home. His mother, Mama Adewale, was sitting by the fire, stirring a pot of soup when they arrived. She looked up in surprise when she saw Adeola soaked and shivering. Adeola. What happened? Mama Adewale asked gently. Before Adeola could explain, Adewale jumped in. Mama, she's been kicked out. She has nowhere to go. Mama Adewale frowned, her eyes softening. She beckoned Adeola to come closer. Sit by the fire, child, warm yourself. You're safe here. For the first time that day, Adeola felt a small sense of relief. She sat by the fire, the warmth slowly creeping back into her bones. What happened, Adeola? Mama Adewale asked again, her voice kind but concerned. Adeola told her everything. The cruel words, the harsh treatment, the slap that still burned on her cheek, and the final moment when she was forced out of the only home she had ever known. As she spoke, Mama Adewale listened quietly, nodding, her face filled with sadness. That woman, Mama Adewale sighed. She has no heart. Can I stay here, Mama? Adeola asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Of course, you can, Mama Adewale said, reaching out to touch Adeola's hand. You will stay here as long as you need to. This is your home now. Tears filled Adeola's eyes again, but this time, they were tears of gratitude. The days turned into weeks. Living with Adewale's family wasn't easy, there wasn't much space, and they weren't rich. But they shared what they had with Adeola. She helped around the house, cooked, cleaned, and even started learning from Mama Adewale how to sew clothes, something she had never done before. Still, the pain of being abandoned by her own family lingered. One day, while she was sitting outside with Adewale, she asked, "Do you think my father will ever come for me?" Adewale didn't answer immediately. "I don't know, Adeola. But you're stronger than you think. You've survived this, and you're still standing." Adeola nodded, though a part of her still wished her father would return, that somehow everything would go back to normal. But deep down, she knew she had to move forward. The village would talk. People always talked. But now, she didn't care as much. She wasn't just an abandoned girl anymore. She was Adeola, and she was learning to stand on her own. As the days passed, Adeola began to find peace in her new life. Though the pain of abandonment still gnawed at her heart, living with Adewale's family gave her a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in a long time. Mama Adewale became like a mother to her, teaching her how to cook new dishes and sew clothes with care. Adewale was her rock, always encouraging her when the weight of the past felt too heavy. One afternoon, after helping Mama Adewale in the kitchen, Adeola sat under the big baobab tree near the house. She looked out at the road, lost in thought. The sun was warm on her face, and for the first time, she felt calm. But just as she was drifting into a daydream, she saw a familiar figure walking down the road toward the house. Her heart skipped a beat. It was her father. "Adeola," he called, his voice shaky with emotion as he hurried towards her. Adeola stood frozen, unsure of what to feel. Anger, relief, confusion all mixed together. Her father looked worn, his eyes filled with regret as he stopped in front of her. "I've been looking for you," he said, his voice breaking. "When I came back, Dadebisi told me you had left. But she lied. She said you ran away. I found out the truth. I didn't know, Adeola. I didn't know she treated you like this." Adeola's lips quivered. "You left me," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "You let her throw me out." "I'm so sorry," he said, dropping to his knees in front of her. "I never meant to abandon you. I've been a fool, trusting her over you. But I'm here now. Please, come home." Adeola looked at him, her heart torn. She had longed for this moment, for her father to return and take her back. But things had changed. She wasn't the same scared girl who had been thrown out. She had grown stronger. "I don't know if I can go back," Adeola said softly. "That place, it's not my home anymore." Her father's face fell, but then he nodded, understanding. "You're right. It's not. I want to make it right. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, we'll start over. You and me." We can leave that house, leave Adebisi. We'll build a new life. Just you and me. Adeola stared at him for a long moment, her mind racing. Then, she thought of Mama Adewale and Adewale, how they had opened their home to her without expecting anything in return. She knew she had a choice. Mama Adewale and Adewale, they've been my family when I had no one, Adeola said slowly. I won't leave them behind. Her father nodded again, his eyes filling with tears. They are good people. Maybe we can build our life together with them. If they'll have me, I'll do anything to make things right. At that moment, Mama Adewale stepped out of the house, having overheard the conversation. She walked over, placing a hand on Adeola's shoulder. You are always welcome here, Adeola. And your father too, if he is willing to mend the broken pieces. Adeola looked between her father and Mama Adewale, and for the first time in a long while, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, hope. She nodded, her heart lightening. Okay. Let's start over. In the months that followed, Adeola and her father moved into a small house not far from Adewale's family. Her father worked hard, and though things weren't perfect, they were better. He kept his promise to never leave her again. Adeola continued to learn from Mama Adewale and started sewing clothes for the village. She grew closer to Adewale, their friendship blossoming into something deeper. Together, they dreamed of the future, of the lives they would build. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Adeola sat with her father Adewale, then Mama Adewale, laughing and sharing stories by the fire. The warmth of the fire wasn't just from the flames, it was from the love and care of the people around her. Adeola had found her home again, not in a house, but in the hearts of those who loved her. And this time, no one could ever take it away.